What is your history of living, working, playing, and volunteering in the city of Springfield?
I was born in Springfield, lived here all of my life except for a few years in the United States Navy right out of high school. I've been a homeowner in Springfield for 51 years in the 16 acres neighborhood, which is all within Ward 5. I've worked for quite a few years at the former Western Mass Electric Company, the utility company that's now owned by Eversource. And after a few years of working there, my coworkers elected me to a full-time union position with the IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and I did that for 16 years, and then was hired by the international office of the union to do a regional job doing very much the same kind of thing, assisting workers with their contract negotiations and administering their contracts, but on a regional basis. Volunteering, I've been very active in volunteer work all my life in Greater Springfield. I've served on the boards of Child and Family Service, Goodwill Industries, the United Way, and the Regional Employment Board, and I've served a total of 15 years at different times as a trustee of our two public universities out here, Westfield State College for 5 years in the 90s, and the University of Massachusetts 5-campus system for 10 years as an appointee of Governor Deval Patrick. And so I'm deeply rooted in this city, and I think that I still have contributions that I'd like to and I'm capable of making to improving the quality of life in our city.
In your opinion, what is the most pressing issue in the city of Springfield, and, if elected, how would you address it?
Yeah, it's hard to know what is the most pressing because there are so many. Springfield, like just about all post-industrial northeastern cities, has all the problems that come along with that and greater difficulty finding ways financially to deal with them, because our tax base, which at one time was largely supported by industry, is now mostly on the backs of homeowners. And what's happening with the real estate market right now, of course, is the primary driver of property taxes. And the city has to maintain adequate revenue to deliver the services and hopefully even expand services that need expanding, but at the same time, be cognizant of trying to keep property taxes to a reasonable amount. So that problems, access to mental health, I think, being way at the top of my list, local access to mental health facilities, not having to rely on facilities far distant from Springfield is very, very high for me. Improving our snow plowing and the condition of our roads, which in the last few years have really deteriorated more so than they had in the past. Those are all very big issues that I think through the budget process I would want to emphasize far more than perhaps is being done. Sometimes it's not a matter of how much money is appropriated, but how we go out and find the contractors that, and how and when, in the timely way that we try to contract for people to do such things as snow plowing. That we sometimes get on the short end of what is a chronic problem across all of our economy, with insufficient workers to do the work that needs to be done. So if you're not out there right away nailing down the best available people and you end up on the short end of the stick, then you're going to have a problem.
If elected, how would you collaborate with others in City Hall to make Springfield a better place?
Well, it's a great question. It's the kind of thing I've done most of my working life, trying to leverage local groups and communities with state legislators to influence the course of legislation and the content of legislation in a way that is progressive and meets the needs of working families. That was a big part of the work that I did over the years that I worked for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. So I know how to do that. There are some major legislative campaigns that radically changed entire industries in Massachusetts that I was deeply involved in on almost a full-time basis back in the 1990s. So I know how to do those things. I know where the centers of power are and where the leverage that can be brought to bear to do that sort of thing can be found, because I'm used to doing it. In terms of the other half of the question about how we leverage things on the city council to deal with our own employees, our own city employees, I should begin by saying that the city council has a very limited role to play in all of that. We approve, the city council has to approve collective bargaining agreements once they're negotiated, but we really have little or no role to play in the process that leads up to that final product. But we can, first of all, we always have a bully pulpit if we think that some of our city employees are not being treated properly because their negotiations are being dragged out inordinately, and there is pressure that we can bring in those areas. But based on my background and my work experience, I am always going to have the open ear, and I'll be able to do and willing to do whatever can be done as a city councilor to try to make sure that we have more harmonious relations with all of our city employees and with their collective bargaining representatives, which have been quite testy at times in recent years. But at the same time, we have to be careful as city councilors not to try to do things that exceed what our authority and our business, frankly, is in the collective bargaining process. We can end up upsetting both sides of the table when we do that. We should not be doing things that, for example, try to force changes through some other mechanism in the city on things that are mandatory subjects of collective bargaining. The collective bargaining representatives are the ones that do the collective bargaining for the employees, not us.